Welcome back to New York City and the We Don't Have Time studio here at the Nest Climate Campus, Climate Week, New York City 2024. I'm your host, James Kotecki. I'm also the Chief Storytelling Officer of a company called AgriPoint, and joining me is our CEO, Kevin Lang of AgriPoint. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Great to see you, James. Great to be in New York.
I got a lot of questions. It's not going to be some kind of puff piece interview. Okay. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of it. And even though, so before we start getting into these harsh questions, we probably should explain to people what AgriPoint is, what AgriPoint does. I know the answer, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Sure. AgriPoint, we are a data and analytics company, and we focus on building tools that can capture, analyze, and manage field information for agriculture, for nature. And why we're here is, it's really important with all the commitments and the challenges and the projects that we're trying to solve, whether it's in climate smart agriculture or restoration or conservation, that we have good data, right? And the data doesn't have to be just high quality. It actually has to be affordable and accessible. So really what AgriPoint does is builds tools to solve all those problems, and we're really excited to see folks now, a couple years being here, a couple years into the evolution of our products, actually using them.
I think people maybe not in this field don't necessarily understand the extent to which a lot of data collection for agricultural and nature use cases has happened and still does happen very manually in many cases. You need human beings in the field putting eyeballs on things, and that's kind of the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, it's really hard work. It's manual work. Yeah. And the first level of AgriPoint is how can we help folks capture data and get away from or supplement manual data capture. A lot of the products we build are centered around a smartphone as well. There's actually more smartphones that are available in the world than people. We're still working to get more equitable access to some areas that don't have smartphones, but it's the best tool that we have today. So we built an app called AgriPoint Capture. It's available on the App Store, on Android now as well, and Google Store. And it's really about how do we use that to capture what our eyes can see, to record what our ears can hear, but do it in a way that is repeatable and affordable, and then bring that data throughout the supply chain. But a lot more we can talk about there too. But that's what's really exciting is people using it.
Yep, capturing that data, and then to throw out a few more sexy terms, applying artificial intelligence and machine learning and generative AI to this data to help better understand it.
Yeah, so there's, when we unpack AI, so today we're using a lot of traditional AI, which is machine learning, looking at images, looking at point clouds to measure things like health, disease, how big is the plant, biomass, trunk diameters, and using that, with data that we get off the smartphone. So we capture it, we apply machine learning, and then we store it in the cloud, right? As the tech evolves, we'll be doing more on the device, right? And we'll send what we need only to the cloud. But that's really AgriPoint, is how do we make it easy to capture data? How do we analyze it in some way that's efficient and repeatable? And then how do we store it and then fuse all the other great sources of data from satellites, from drones, from soil sensors? So it's also important that we're here, that we see all these other great scale-up companies, startup companies, tech companies that are solving some of these other problems with other data sources. Let's all work together to get it into one spot.
It's funny you use the word traditional, the phrase traditional AI. It's funny to think of some parts of AI as like traditional, old school, yesterday's news, when still that's a lot of where the cutting edge is actually happening, and people who just think about generative AI, as much as we're using that too, are kind of missing a big piece of what's going into fighting climate change and building food security.
Yeah, so traditional trusted AI, we know it well. We know that it does a really great job at looking at a data set and telling us what's there. So we're building descriptive analytics based on digitization of that, something that we would describe and measure, with a tape measure or calipers or some type of, judgment in the field.
Yeah, and beyond the hype cycle of is AI hyped, is it overhyped, is it underhyped? Behind the scenes, a lot of this stuff just keeps progressing and getting better and more usable for regular people out there in the world.
It's incredible, and I might have mentioned we do 3D modeling as well, so part of the scanning experience is getting a digital twin from a smartphone. And the technology over the last really 6 months to 12 months is mind-blowing, just how well we can take images and using LiDAR data and fuse that together and creating a digital twin.
And it's not just us, as much as our team is extremely talented, our team is also leveraging so much research and work that's being done just out in the world, in the community, for now being able to model the natural world. I think maybe that's one of the messages here for Climate Week, is just how much progress and how much opportunity there is to do that with the technology that's available today.
Yeah, and that's part of the message here this week, even though Climate Week's in its infancy just on Tuesday, a lot of the discussion is like, okay, technology is available. How do we actually go and form partnerships to make it happen?
Yeah.
And yeah, we work on the backs of giants. Like, we're doing a lot of great work, and our team is really innovative. But man, there's so many great universities and others that are helping us to build these tools that we're getting out to the ground, literally.
Can we name some of the partners that we're working with on this?
Yeah, so on the tech side, we do a lot of what we build in the cloud on Microsoft. So a lot of the tools and machine learning capabilities that Microsoft has, AgriPoint uses. Some recent announcements, we work with a lot of enterprises, so big ag companies, big food companies, nature companies, project developers that are using our tech, and these are multi-year projects. So we've started working with some of these companies, 2 or 3, 4, even 4 years ago. Publicly, we're starting to talk about some of the work we're doing with sustainable cacao, with Mars. We were at the IFC Agribusiness Conference a couple weeks, maybe it was last week, and talking about that. So it's really exciting how companies like Mars and others are using accessible tech, not just in R&D, but production, and using it to really track the goals from the field, so they can understand, how are we doing with our investments and our decarbonization goals as we get better.
You said another magic word there. I want to drill down a little bit more into the decarbonization of agriculture, and what role kind of data and modeling and understanding of the natural world can play in actually getting to decarbonization.
Yeah, agriculture is a big contributor, as everyone knows, to carbon. I think it's 30% of the emissions there. So what we're trying to do across the whole value chain is how can we focus on really harvest and pre-harvest data to make sure that we are helping the farmers and the companies that are sourcing crops to just get better information about how it's grown. So for example, harvest is really complicated. Labor is always challenging for agriculture. So how can we provide better data to know, when to harvest? How can we get data to identify diseases really early in the process? But also giving that feedback loop through smartphones and accessible technology to the growers and to the communities in the field. So if we can get more data from throughout the supply chain, and especially deliver it back to the growers, that just helps institute better practices like regenerative agriculture practices, looking at agriculture more holistically, low-till, no-till, cover cropping, and everything else that's involved there. And then also, kind of adjacent to decarbonization is a lot of the new regulatory regulations that have come out, like the EUDR, the deforestation regulation. These companies need really good data, so we're helping on that into the decarbonization adjacent front.
What do you see for Climate Week 2025, 2026, 27? What are we going to be talking about then? How much further is the technology capable of going, even with what we just know now about what the near term looks like?
Oh, buddy, buckle up. It's going to be exciting. You could just see if we look back a couple of Climate Weeks ago, there was a lot of companies that were talking about actually going out and doing some of the work using technology and digital MRV. And over the last year, folks have been doing it, been trying. And folks that have made commitments are actually coming out now and saying, well, maybe we need to change what we said we're going to do because we've learned something. And so the humility of some companies coming out and saying, all right, we've actually gone out there and it's hard, but we're going to get it right. And so that's been really exciting to see this year. And there's also some new entrants to Climate Week just in the last couple of days. I've seen pretty large companies come out and say, hey, we've been actually doing a lot of this work around regenerative agriculture, making commitments, investing in our farmers, and here's the results, here's the data. And it's really exciting to see kind of everyone really talking about projects that have happened and formulating more partnerships. You're just walking around, you're seeing other folks that we are currently engaged with in terms of project developers or other tech companies, and we're like, hey, how's the project going down this part of the world, and how do we bring that somewhere else? It's just really exciting to see that action, and over the next couple of years, we're just going to see more of that. Tech's going to get better, data is going to be ubiquitous with connectivity and some of the other technology on smartphones and the cloud. So really, it's more, the barrier is more about how do we collaborate and partner together, and let's bring a bunch of entrepreneurs that are really good and excited about business models. And that's the next wave here to 2026, 25 Climate Weeks.
Opportunities are numerous, the energy is palpable, and I don't know if the audience can actually hear the variation in audio that's been happening here in the hall, but if you're here with us, the audio is palpable as well. And so we appreciate you sticking with us through this conversation. What message do you have for other tech leaders that are here? What's the final thought that you want to leave folks with as they think about these series of interviews from Climate Week?
Well, tech leaders that are here, or tech leaders that want to jump in and do work in agriculture and nature, we need help. Bring it on. There's a lot of problems to be solved. I'll say, Climate Week is year to year, but some of the problems we're solving and some of the realization of benefits are really long term. So we need long term thinkers, but like short term, movers that are really excited. Yeah. So come on and jump into I think the most important industry in the world, agriculture, and then secondly, let's protect our natural ecosystems and let's use tech that's available today and make it happen.
Kevin Lang, CEO of AgriPoint, thank you so much for joining us here at the We Don't Have Time studio at the Javits Center for Climate Week 2024.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, James. Great to see you.
Thank you. And I am James Kotecki, your host, and it's been my pleasure to host these conversations here with We Don't Have Time. You can get more of these conversations at wedon'thavetime.org, so please go there, check them out, and keep thinking about the climate. See you next time.